Hey guys, tonight we ride through golden dunes, sun-baked cities, and ancient marketplaces heavy with spice. You are in the heart of West Africa, and the heat clings to your skin like silk soaked in sweat. A camel huffs beside you, blinking slowly as if it knows secrets that you never will. Children chase goats through alleys paved in gold dust, and griots chant stories older than most rivers. Somewhere up ahead, in a palace that smells of incense and polished wood, a man slips on golden sandals and prepares to become unforgettable. You are about to meet Mansa Musa, the richest man who ever lived. No, seriously, the guy tipped in gold, flexed his faith on a transcontinental road trip, and accidentally crashed an economy just by showing up. You will walk the same paths he did, with camels as your sidekicks and enough quirky desert facts to make your eyelids heavy. But be warned, between the scorpions, power games, and slightly cursed rain mud buildings, you probably will not survive this story if you take it too seriously. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you are listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You squint at the horizon. The sun is a melting coin above Mali, and you are just one traveler in a land where gold does not glitter, it blinds. The Mali Empire, around the 1300s, is a world of contradictions. Crocodiles laze in rivers next to bustling ports. Donkeys and merchants clog royal roads, carved through nothingness. Somewhere between the forested south and the desert north lies Niani, the capital, a modest, sun-scorched city perched beside the Niger River, where Mansa Musa will rule, plan, and eventually leave footprints that echo louder than most empires. You arrive just in time to feel the pressure. Musa's older brother, Mansa Abu Bakr II, has supposedly launched an insane voyage into the Atlantic, determined to find the edge of the world. He vanishes. Poof, no ship returns. Historians still argue whether he drowned in a storm or found a new land and just stayed. Either way, someone has to step up, and that someone is Musa. At first, he is not even a king, just a loyal deputy appointed to keep things running, while his brother tests nautical theories on wooden rafts. But fate, as it turns out, is lazy and a little dramatic. When Abu Bakr never comes back, the empire just kind of looks around, shrugs, and points at Musa. Congratulations, you are now in charge of the largest empire in West Africa. And oh, what an empire! Mali stretches across what is now Senegal, Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, the Gambia, Guinea, and even bits of Nigeria. It is rich in gold, salt, ivory, and less glamorously, cattle dung. Yes, you will smell that part soon. You walk through Niani's markets, and every corner hums with trade. Gold dust is used like pocket change. People literally carry it in leather pouches tied to their belts, alongside sharp knives, and sometimes dried dates. The currency? Cowrie shells, slabs of salt, or just good vibes and gold flakes? Okay, maybe not the vibes, but still, wealth flows through this place like palm wine at a victory feast. Musa's rule begins quietly. No trumpet blasts, no gold dripping selfies, just calculated calm. He strengthens the empire's grip on trade routes and forges alliances with neighboring chiefs who think twice before challenging a guy backed by tens of thousands of warriors and a spiritual mandate. Oh, and camels. Do not forget the camels. Camels are not just beasts of burden here. They are survival tools, sleepy-eyed, drama-prone, and always pretending to be above everything. These animals are basically the divas of the desert. They carry salt slabs across the Sahara, haul gold between cities, and spit on anyone who dares look them in the eye for too long. One fringe traveler's account claimed camels in Musa's service were fed dates soaked in honey. Another swears they were massaged before long trips. Historians still argue whether this was pampering or practical camel psychology. But for Musa, wealth is not enough. Power needs meaning. So he decides to make a statement, a massive pilgrimage to Mecca, known as the Hajj, and he will not go quietly. Imagine planning a trip where you have to cross 4,000 kilometers of dust, mountains, hostile bandits, and awkward camel politics. Now imagine doing it with 60,000 people, thousands of animals, and enough gold to pay everyone along the way. Twice. But you are not there yet. Tonight, you curl into the sounds of evening prayers echoing from clay mosques. You hear the rustle of palm leaves, the clatter of hooves, and maybe, just maybe, a whispered rumor about a king who is about to become a legend. And somewhere in the dark, a camel sneezes. You trudge alongside the trade caravans now, the sand swallowing your footsteps like secrets. The Sahel stretches ahead in smears of grayish-green, dotted with thorny bushes, and the occasional stubborn baobab tree, trees that look like they were planted upside down by a confused giant. This is the dry belly of West Africa, the in-between zone where grasslands sigh into desert. And in this zone, camels suffer quietly. Camels, you discover, hate humidity. Their smug desert faces turn sour as you descend into slightly wetter regions. Their fur gets matted. Their hooves slip in the occasional mud patch. And yes, some even throw tantrums. One glares at you for 2 days straight. You begin to suspect they know you are not from around here. But this is the terrain Mansa Musa's empire spans, from the Atlantic's breeze to the scorching waves of the Sahara. Mali is not a neatly boxed kingdom. It breathes, pulses, sprawls. You pass through forests where cola nuts are currency, over cliffs where herders yell to each other like cliffside birds, and across scrubland where wind carves ghostly patterns in dust. Trade flows through this land like blood in a vein, and camels are the pulse. Mansa Musa, even before becoming king, understands this rhythm. He studies it like a tactician, watching how merchants move, where gold flows fastest, and which clans control key routes. You follow a salt caravan that moves like a giant insect across the sand, dozens of camels, their cargo piled in tall rectangles, creaking under the weight of treasure and sunburn. And there is something surreal about how calm they look while carrying fortunes. Mali's wealth is not just in gold, it is also in location. Like a chess piece positioned just right, Musa's empire controls the choke points between West Africa's inland riches and North Africa's ports and markets. Caravans carry salt from the mines of Tagaza northward, while gold from Bambuk and Bure moves the other way. Somewhere in the middle, you and an increasingly irritated camel. Along the way, you pass towns that shimmer with dust-glazed walls and buzzing markets. You smell roasted millet goat fat, dried fish, and the sweet tang of fermenting sorghum. You see griots performing under mango trees, their chorus strings humming tales of ancient warriors and awkward royal marriages. You see elders napping under awnings, children chasing chicken shadows, and travelers bartering aggressively over tiny things, copper rings, folded cloth, smoked lizards. Musa grows up hearing all this. He is not yet king, but he walks these same roads, listens to these same griots, and dreams bigger than anyone around him. He watches camel caravans vanish into the horizon and wonders, what would it be like to control every grain of that sand? And it is not all glamour. Remember, with heat this intense, hygiene is a spiritual journey. There are no public bathhouses in the desert. People perfume themselves with crushed herbs and scented clay. Camels, meanwhile, just stink. Their thick coats hold the sun like a sponge and leak it slowly back at night. Some locals swear that camel breath can cure sinus infections. Others swear it causes them. Quirky fact: there is an old belief in parts of West Africa that camels can remember insults for generations. This might explain why one of them tried to chew on your robe. It might also be camel drama. Hard to tell, but as you follow the caravans northward, you start to understand something vital. Mali is not just wealthy, it is connected. Invisible threads of trade, trust, and tribute stitched together its far-flung cities and clans. Musa's eventual power will rest not just on his gold piles, but on his ability to manage these threads without snapping any. The deeper you go into the empire, the more organized things become. You pass checkpoints manned by soldiers with curved swords and polite smiles. They wave you through after a few quick questions and a glance at your camel's rear. Yes, apparently brands matter more than passports out here. Tax collectors sit in shaded huts tallying goods with knotted ropes and dusty scrolls. One even uses pebbles in a shallow bowl, clicking them around like a stone abacus. Historians still argue whether Musa inherited this structure or built it out himself. Either way, it works. Trade flows. Bandits stay nervous. Towns flourish. And then there's the water. After days of choking on red dust, you finally reach the banks of the Niger River, a coiling blue-green miracle that cuts through the land like a snake in deep thought. Fishermen haul in nets full of catfish and eels, while women wash clothes with rhythmic slaps that echo like clapping hands. Markets spring up beside ferry points. Cattle low softly under trees, and somewhere nearby, an old woman scolds a goat in 3 languages. The river is the empire's quiet artery, Musa will later build cities near it, protect its ferry points, and use its bends as natural defense lines. But for now, it is a place of learning. You sit on a flat rock, feet in the water, and hear the gossip from passing merchants, tales of kingdoms beyond the desert, of white-robed traders from the east, of strange new tools made of iron and sharp words. You hear rumors of people who sail across oceans and cities where buildings pierce the clouds, and you understand Mali is a crossroads. And Mansa Musa, he will make sure it becomes the center. As the sun bleeds out behind acacia trees and frogs begin their nightly orchestra, you lie back and let the river hum you into a drowsy kind of awe. Somewhere up the trade road, Mansa Musa is watching the same sunset, his mind already mapping out a future so grand it will boggle the world. Your camel sneezes again, probably on purpose. You wake up to the sound of metal scraping wood. Someone is sharpening a blade nearby, calmly, rhythmically, as if they expect nothing but trouble. The sun is already high, burning through the haze like a torch pressed to silk. Your camel gives you a look that says, "I warned you, but today is not about you. It is about a boy growing up in the empire's shadow, soon to become its light." Mansa Musa is still young. No crown yet, no jeweled robes. Just curiosity, long walks, and the weight of a name that means King of Kings. He spends his early years in Niani, Mali's capital. Not exactly a megacity, but busy enough. The streets buzz with talk, trade, and flies. Stone walls rise alongside mud brick homes. The smell of roasted meat hangs permanently in the air. Children play wrestling games in the dust, mimicking battles their fathers fought. And Musa, with eyes like polished amber, listens, watches, learns. His tutors teach him the Quran under baobab trees. He learns to recite verses, to write with reed pens, and to debate without raising his voice. He studies Arabic alongside his native man tongue and learns that words can move armies if spoken at the right time. One of his favorite lessons? A parable about a camel, a well, and too much ambition. He laughs at it the first time. Later, it will haunt him. You stroll through the palace gardens with him, simple, sunburned, filled with mango trees and guards who pretend not to eavesdrop. He learns how to count grain shipments, read market prices, and calculate tribute. Mali's administration is complex, a web of appointed governors called farbas, each with their own turf to protect and bend. Musa studies their letters, their reports, and their lies, especially their lies. Historians still argue whether Musa was already being groomed to lead or was simply the backup plan, a smart cousin picked in a moment of royal panic. But what is clear is this: he knows power before he holds it, and when his chance comes, he does not blink. What chance? A boat ride? Well, more like a full-blown naval obsession. Musa's predecessor, Mansa Abu Bakr II, becomes fixated with the Atlantic Ocean. You probably did not expect that. Most kings stick to castles and land wars. Not Abu Bakr. He wants to know what lies past the horizon, past the gull screams and crashing waves. He builds a massive fleet, some say 200 ships, Others say 2000, and launches an expedition westward. They vanish. All of them. One ship returns, badly damaged, the crew half mad with thirst. They claim a whirlpool swallowed the rest. Abu Bakr listens, nods, and immediately builds more ships. This time, he leads the mission himself. You already know what happens next. Nothing. No one comes back. No word. No sails. No scraps. Just silence. So the empire turns to Musa, who was left as acting ruler. And there is no ceremony, no confetti, no big inauguration feast with flaming goat legs. The title of Mansa simply becomes his. The people move on like they always do. The grain still grows, the salt still flows. And Musa? He starts planning. But before you leap into conquest and golden parades, take a moment. Think about what it means to rule an empire with no fixed borders. Maps in this era are more art than science. Mali is shaped by rivers, rumors, and relationships. It is a living thing, part myth, part market. And Musa knows it needs tending. You walk with him through court. His advisors speak in measured tones, bowing just low enough to show respect without seeming weak. Disputes are settled over kola nuts and verses from the Quran. Land is allocated based on lineage, rainfall, and favor. Justice here is less about strict codes and more about balance, keeping things from falling apart. One fringe account claims Musa once disguised himself as a commoner and spent days in the market, listening to grievances. Another suggests he staged arguments between his ministers just to see who would lie first. Historians still argue whether either story is true, but honestly, they feel on brand. And you notice something else. Musa is patient, calculated. He does not rush to conquer neighbors or hoard more gold. He strengthens trade, fortifies towns, and sends scholars to distant libraries in search of knowledge, not just treasure. You follow him to a hilltop outside Niani one evening. He stands there, watching the horizon, hands clasped behind his back. Below, fires flicker in clay ovens. The city buzzes with night songs and drum beats. But Musa's eyes are elsewhere, beyond the forests, beyond the sand, beyond the ocean that swallowed his predecessor. You wonder what he sees. You wonder if he is already imagining the Hajj. Your camel chews noisily beside you, probably bored, probably thinking about how none of this gold can buy it better saddle padding. Still, you stay a little longer because something about Musa makes silence feel sacred. Something about the way he carries stillness like a sword. The boy is gone now. The man remains. And tomorrow, the empire will begin to move. The morning hits you with a slap of heat and humming tension. Something has shifted in the air, like the empire is inhaling just before a long exhale. And that exhale? It is going to echo across continents. Mansa Musa has decided to go on pilgrimage. Now, pause for a moment. You might think, okay, cool. Religious king goes to Mecca. People did that. Yes, true. But not like this. This is not just any pilgrimage. This is a spectacle, a flex, a diplomatic sledgehammer wrapped in velvet robes and poetry. Mansa Musa is about to ride over 3,000 miles across Africa and Arabia, and he is taking half the empire with him. It starts small, a few whispers in the court. Then the merchants catch wind, then the griots. Then suddenly, blacksmiths are refudging gold ingots into ornamented staffs. Weavers are working through the night. Tailors lose sleep. Camel traders get that, oh no, we are about to be very employed look, because Musa does not travel light. Oh no. You follow the first caravans out of Niani, and it already feels like a royal parade. There are servants, cooks, bodyguards, scholars, singers, griots, and at least a few elephants in embroidered blankets, because why not? Musa assembles somewhere between 60,000 and 100,000 people. Some historians call this exaggerated. Others say, honestly, seems low. And camels? Over 8,000 of them, each loaded with gold, some carrying nothing but gold, some so decked out in gold that you feel poor just looking at them. And Musa? His personal ride is rumored to be a tall, striking beast with a gold-plated saddle and a tiny parasol carrier trotting behind it, looking mildly overworked. One contemporary account claims Musa distributed gold so freely along the route that entire regional economies were destabilized. Cairo's market, for instance, allegedly took years to recover from the sudden flood of Malian gold. Historians still argue whether this inflation was accidental or Musa's passive-aggressive way of saying, "You are welcome." You pass through towns that have never seen this much wealth in one place. Children climb trees just to watch the parade go by. Traders try not to faint. Local rulers scramble to host Musa's court with enough honor not to offend him, but not so much that they appear to be brown-nosing. It is a delicate game, one that Musa plays like a harp. You stop in Lalata, the edge of the Sahara, and it feels like a deep breath before the burn. The desert ahead is unforgiving, the kind of place where even shadows forget where they are going. But Musa has planned. Every day is mapped, wells marked, provisions measured. His advisors have calculated the grain down to the mouthful. And yet, you still lose a few camels to mirages. One wandered off chasing what it thought was a lake. It found a scorpion instead. Not ideal. Still, the caravan crawls forward, over dunes and under stars, across salt flats that shimmer like alien seas. At night, fires light up the sand like constellations reversed, stars on earth, not sky. And through all this, Musa keeps his cool. He prays 5 times a day. He holds councils even in tents. He settles disputes with the same calm gravity he did back in Niani. Some nights, he sits outside alone, fingers sifting through dust, as if reading omens in the grains. Fringe detail? One tale says he once paused the entire pilgrimage for 3 days because a particularly poetic sand dune reminded him of a Quranic verse. His griots wrote a song about it. You hear them hum it under their breath, soft and reverent. The caravan reaches Tuat, then to Quetta, where Musa buys more gold. Yes, buys more gold, mid-hajj. Just in case he had not brought enough, you start to notice something odd. Every few days, Musa meets with scholars along the way, not for politics, for philosophy, for theology. He debates law, language, legacy, and he listens, really listens. That is the part people underestimate. He is not just building a golden brand. He is collecting knowledge like some people collect rare stones. One evening, you catch a conversation between Musa and a blind scholar under a desert sky. The man speaks of faith as geometry, of ethics as architecture. Musa leans in, quiet, then quotes a line of poetry in perfect Arabic. The scholar smiles. "You are no ordinary king," he says. Musa does not answer. You pass a caravan going the other way. Traders from Egypt. They stop, jaws slack, as Musa's entourage flows past them like a golden tide. One mutters, "This cannot be real." You nod, unsure if you are real anymore. Eventually, the dunes start to flatten. Palms appear. The Nile snakes into view. You are approaching Cairo, and Cairo is not ready. You enter Cairo like a sandstorm dipped in perfume and wrapped in silk. The city is already bustling, carts creaking, spices spilling, arguments bouncing between minarets. But when word spreads that Mansa Musa has arrived, everything stops. Bakers pause mid-dough. Merchants clutch their ledgers. Cats blink from rooftops like they just smelled gold. You ride in behind the main procession, and it feels like slipping into history's most absurd parade. Musa's entourage stretches for miles. Gold glints from every corner. Anklets, sword hilts, camel armor. Yes, camel armor. Even the drinking bowls are rumored to be 24 karat. Cairo has seen wealth before, but not like this. Not in bulk. Not with this kind of effortless swagger. Musa makes his entrance understated for him. No fireworks, no trumpets, just calm authority and enough gold dust in the air to make the pigeons nervous. He's led to meet the Mamluk Sultan, Al-Nasir Muhammad, and here's where things get a little awkward. See, protocol demands that visiting royals kneel and kiss the ground before the Sultan. Musa, devout Muslim though he is, sees himself as a peer, not a subordinate. Historians still argue whether Musa bowed fully or just offered a polite head tilt. Some versions say he refused entirely, others that he complied begrudgingly after intense persuasion. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, just enough humility to keep diplomacy intact, just enough pride to preserve his image back home. You follow the negotiations like a nosy pigeon. Musa's court charms the palace with gifts, gold, silk, and more gold. Cairo's elite are dazzled. Even the Sultan's advisors are caught staring. And then there's the donations. Musa does not tip. He transforms. He donates so much gold to mosques, charities, and the poor that local prices nosedive. Gold loses value. Bread prices spike. Wealth shifts, almost violently. Imagine giving away money so generously that you accidentally crash an economy. That is Mansa Musa in Cairo. Modern economists estimate Musa gave away literal tons of gold during his stay. That is not hyperbole, tons. Fringe scholars have even theorized that this single act may have altered the course of North African monetary policy for years. Others say that's romanticized nonsense. Still, Cairo remembers. And Musa is not just throwing coins out of windows like a bored prince. He's strategic. He visits scholars, hosts theological debates, meets judges and jurists. He wants minds, not just markets. He asks questions about Islamic law, about trade infrastructure, about how Cairo connects to Mecca, to the wider world. You begin to see it. He's not just here to worship. He's here to network. One quirky tidbit you stumble upon. Rumor has it Musa once gifted a gold saddle to a local storyteller who made him laugh mid-meal. The storyteller reportedly used the saddle as a throne in his shop and started charging double. You swing by. The shop is still there, saddle long gone, but the legend remains painted on the wall. Musa spends nearly 3 months in Cairo. You walk its narrow alleys, shaded bazaars, and crowded prayer halls with him. Each day, more petitions arrive. People want jobs, gifts, wisdom, blessings, favors. Some just want to see what a living myth looks like. He grants what he can, never promising more than he intends to deliver. He smiles rarely, but when he does, it is like the Nile changed course. One day, a group of Moroccan scholars arrive just to speak with him. One brings an ancient manuscript as a gift. Musa responds with a book he carried all the way from Niani, his personal copy of the Quran, hand-copied by a Malian scribe with dyed fingers and impeccable penmanship. You sit in on that meeting. The talk ranges from astronomy to theology to camels, of course. One camel had apparently developed a grudge and tried to bite its handler for 3 days straight. Musa laughed. "Even my camels are opinionated," he said. Everyone nodded solemnly, as if this was a metaphor. Eventually, it is time to move on. The Hajj itself awaits. But before leaving, Musa hosts a final feast. It is held in the palace garden, under glowing lanterns, and a tent laced with crimson thread. Hundreds attend, nobles, scholars, curious children who slipped past the guards. There is roasted lamb, honey-soaked pastries, rice with saffron, chilled melon water, and yes, camel milk, which tastes better than it sounds. You stand off to the side, watching Musa as he speaks with an old imam about the future of Islamic scholarship in West Africa. He says he wants to build a place of learning so grand it will outlive his empire. Not just gold, he murmurs, but knowledge that shines. And just like that, you realize Cairo was not the climax. It was the setup, the echo before the boom, the part where the rest of the world learns Mansa Musa's name and starts watching. The camels snort, the crates are sealed, the prayers are whispered. Mecca is next. And yes, your sandals are already full of sand again. You leave Cairo behind at sunrise, its golden rooftops melting into the haze. The Nile slips out of sight, and you're back in the saddle, literally rocking gently on a camel that smells like old shoes and contempt. Ahead lies Mecca, the holiest city in Islam, and Mansa Musa is determined to reach it with style, grace, and just a little more gold than strictly necessary. The desert changes as you go. Here, The wind carries stories, old ones. Traders hum while guiding their caravans. The sky is so big it makes your thoughts feel small, like your brain just got resized by the horizon. At night, the stars are close enough to touch. Musa often prays beneath them, face lit by a lantern that flickers with the same calm rhythm as his breath. Now, this stretch of the journey is not glamorous. Long hours, sore muscles, the usual camel-related betrayals. One spits on a royal page, another gets stuck in a sand hole and has to be dug out by 4 grumbling men and a scholar who needed to stretch anyway. Still, the mood remains respectful, focused. You are approaching sacred ground, and everyone feels it. The pilgrimage to Mecca, the Hajj, is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. For devout Muslims, it is a spiritual climax, a once-in-a-lifetime obligation. And Mansa Musa, he is not just performing the rites, he is turning them into history. By the time you reach Medina, the caravan has swollen. Pilgrims join along the way, drawn like iron to a magnet. Musa welcomes them all, merchants, beggars, theologians, musicians. His generosity continues. He pays for lodging, meals, and sometimes even new robes for fellow travelers. The man is building goodwill with every step, one robe at a time. Historians still argue whether Musa intended this as political soft power or pure devotion. Either way, it works. People remember him. They tell stories in marketplaces, mosques, and homes. I walked to Mecca with the golden king of Mali. They say, wide-eyed, he gave a child 5 dinars because her camel made him laugh. And now, Mecca. You arrive on a quiet morning. The air is heavy with incense and sun. The Kaaba rises in the distance, a black cube against the sand, commanding and still. It is smaller than you imagined, but more powerful than you expected. You watch Musa dismount and approach with reverence. No entourage, no gold, just a pilgrim. He circles the Kaaba 7 times. He prays. He stands among the crowd, unadorned. In that moment, he is not a king, not a legend, just a man seeking peace. The Hajj rituals are precise, and Musa follows everyone. You sleep in tents at Mina. You gather stones at Muzdalifah. You watch the symbolic stoning of the devil at Jamarat, and it hits you. Even among tens of thousands of worshippers, Musa stands out, not because of what he wears, but because of how he carries silence. His faith is quiet but vast, like the dunes outside Mecca. A quirky detail? One of Musa's camels, bored during a prayer stop, sneaks into another caravan's grain cart and eats half a sack before being caught. The owner tries to scold it. The camel rolls its eyes. Musa laughs and compensates the man with enough gold to replace the cart. You meet pilgrims from as far as India and Andalusia, and many have heard of Musa already. One scholar from Yemen brings him a rare copy of a hadith collection as a gift. Musa, in turn, offers him an invitation to Timbuktu. Come west, he says. There is work to be done, because that is the real purpose beneath all this gold and prayer and camel drama. Musa is recruiting. quietly, strategically. He wants the best minds in the Islamic world: architects, jurists, teachers, calligraphers, builders. He's planting seeds. One historian later wrote that Musa's Hajj doubled as an intellectual shopping spree. Others insist he was merely fulfilling a sacred duty. The truth is probably both. Why not pray and plan? When it is time to leave Mecca, there is no parade, no dramatic send-off, just soft goodbyes, the shuffle of sandals on sand, and a distant coo of pigeons. You pack quietly. The road west waits. But before Musa departs, he meets one last time with a group of scholars from Damascus. They ask him what he will do next. He replies simply, "Build." And then he adds, "Not just for my sons, but for their teachers' teachers." That night, under a canopy of stars and camel yawns, you realize the gold was never the point. It was the signal, the message. Mali has arrived, and it is thinking centuries ahead. The journey back begins with a different energy. The excitement has settled into something steadier, quieter. You feel it in your bones as the caravan reshapes itself for the long haul west. The prayers of Mecca still echo in your ears, but now the drums of empire begin to beat faintly in the distance. Mansa Musa is going home, but he is not returning the same man who left, and neither are you. The route winds back through Medina, across deserts that seem somehow longer than before, and toward Cairo once again. But this time, it is not just the scenery that has changed. Musa's caravan is heavier now, not just with gifts and scrolls, but with people, lots of them. You glance around and spot new faces, scribes with ink-stained fingers, architects who sketch arches in the air with invisible chalk, scholars still arguing about the proper interpretation of a single verse from the Quran. Musa has gathered them like stars into a constellation, and he intends to hang that constellation over Mali. One of them is Abu Ishaq Isaheli, a poet and architect from Andalusia who caught Musa's attention with a clever verse and a plan for a new kind of mosque. Spoiler alert, he is going to change the face of West African architecture forever. But for now, he rides in quiet awe, trying to imagine where exactly this Timbuktu is. Back in Cairo, the reception is complicated. Remember all that gold Musa threw around on his first visit? Yeah, it left a bit of a mess. Inflation hit the city like a runaway camel, and people are still talking about it in frustrated tones. Bread prices soared. Markets struggled. Gold, for a while, was less valuable than patience. Historians still argue whether Musa apologized, tried to fix it, or simply shrugged and moved on. Some say he bought back as much gold as he could at inflated prices to stabilize the market. Others say he doubled down with more donations and smiled his way through the chaos. Either way, Cairo has learned its lesson. When Mansa Musa shows up, prepare your ledgers and maybe stockpile grain. One Cairo merchant, still bitter, tells you he meant well. But next time, tell him to bring spices. But the return trip is not just about logistics. Musa takes time to visit mosques, to reconnect with leaders he met months earlier, and to pray, always to pray. You begin to notice how deeply ritual grounds his movements. No matter how grand his ambitions, he still bows 5 times a day in the sand, face lowered, voice soft. And then there are the camels. You would think by now they would have developed some decorum. Instead, one refuses to move until fed exclusively honey dates. Another sits down mid-road and refuses to rise unless sung to. You watch as a royal attendant hums a very off-key lullaby about perseverance and sandstorms. It works. The camel rises with a sigh that feels deeply philosophical. A quirky detail. Musa receives a gift from a Cairo artisan, a map hand-painted on leather, depicting the route from Mecca to Mali. Except the artisan had never seen Mali, so he drew it as a giant golden city floating on a cloud. Musa laughs and keeps it anyway. As you cross back into the Western Sahara, the mood begins to shift. Home is near. The scholars are asking more questions now about Mali's customs, its languages, its resources. Musa is more than happy to answer, often in long, thoughtful monologues delivered during rest stops under acacia trees. "Gold is not our greatest treasure," he says one night. "It is just the loudest. Our treasure is what we remember, what we build, what we teach." The group falls silent. Even the camels seem moved. You pass towns that once looked remote, but now buzz with curiosity. Word of Musa's pilgrimage has traveled faster than the caravan. People greet him with cheers, prayers, and food. So much food. Roasted goat, millet cakes, tamarind juice served in gourd bowls. You are offered a sweet called zabadi by a girl who insists it cures camel breath. It does not, but it is delicious. Somewhere near to Gaza, you spot a salt caravan headed east. The traders stop and gape. They have heard the stories of the gold, the scholars, the golden-robed king who humbled Cairo and prayed in Mecca. One leans toward you and whispers, "Is it true he paid to rebuild an entire mosque just because he liked the call to prayer?" You nod. That one was real. And suddenly, you realize the story has already become myth. Before Musa even returns home, he is being reshaped by rumor, by reverence, by whispers carried on the wind. You watch him carefully, wondering if he knows. He does, but he does not chase the myth. He lets it walk beside him. And just before the last leg of the journey, he stops the caravan under a stand of desert palms. The scholars gather. The guards dismount. The camels, of course, immediately sit down. Musa addresses them all. "We will return to Mali, but it will not be the Mali you left. We will build, not just for ourselves, but for those who come centuries from now. They will not know our names, but they will walk through doors we carved. They will pray in the halls we imagined." You feel a chill despite the heat, because that promise, it is not just for them. It is for you too. The air thickens with dust as the familiar lands of the Sahel roll toward you. Villages come into view, then the wide rivers, and finally, the lush, golden heart of the Mali Empire. You are home, or almost. Mansa Musa, regal and weathered by the desert winds, now rides not as a king on pilgrimage, but as an emperor returning with ideas that will reshape the world he rules. The homecoming is not quiet. As her caravan approaches Niani, the capital, drums echo through the trees. Children run ahead to announce the arrival. Women sing songs of return, and griots, those oral historians with memory like steel and rhythm in their bones, begin composing verses before the hooves even touch city soil. You pass under arches woven from palm fronds and flowers. People bow. Musa bows back, hand pressed to his chest. He greets them not as subjects, but as kin, and that small gesture carries a weight far heavier than gold. Musa has not just returned with stories and scholars. He has brought with him a blueprint for a Mali not merely rich in metal, but rich in mind. First order of business. Building. But not just buildings. Institutions. Centers of learning. Systems to support the kind of long-term thinking that outlives any single king's reign. And it begins in Timbuktu. Now, let us pause. Timbuktu today might sound like a cartoonishly remote place, your go-to metaphor for middle of nowhere. But in Musa's world, it is the future, and he sees that before almost anyone else. Timbuktu sits at the edge of the Niger River, where desert and savanna brush fingertips. It is already a lively trading hub, with markets selling everything from ostrich feathers to manuscripts written in shaky Arabic. But Musa envisions something more. He wants it to rival Mecca, Cairo, even Baghdad in intellectual clout. So he sends for builders. And guess who steps up? Yes, our Andalusian architect friend from earlier, Abu Ishaq as-Saheli. He is commissioned to design a grand mosque unlike anything Mali has seen. The Jingariber Mosque rises from the earth like a sandcastle kissed by geometry. Wide courtyards, thick earthen walls, wooden beams jutting like ribs from a sleeping beast. It becomes more than a place of worship. It becomes the heartbeat of a movement. Around it, Musa orders the construction of libraries, lecture halls, and scriptoriums. He funds scholars to transcribe books, debate law, and teach astronomy, grammar, and theology. You hear them argue well past sundown, their voices weaving through the city's breath like a lullaby made of logic. Historians still argue whether Musa personally designed Timbuktu's transformation or simply set the stage and let the minds flourish. Some say he micromanaged every mud brick. Others claim he was content to fund and trust. The truth? Likely somewhere in the clay walls of those very buildings. A quirky tidbit. To keep the walls cool during hot seasons, Musa encouraged the use of a traditional mud mixture that included shea butter and fermented date pulp. Locals still claim it gave the mosques a faintly sweet scent, like sunshine and old books. Meanwhile, Niani is not neglected. Musa ensures his capital grows too, with administrative offices, new mosques, and irrigation systems. The royal court becomes a buzzing center of diplomacy. Ambassadors from North Africa, the Middle East, and even Southern Europe pass through, bowing before a man who once walked beside their own rulers in Mecca. You attend one of Musa's public forums, a weekly gathering where grievances are heard, cases judged, and ideas debated. It is part courtroom, part coffee house, part think tank. The crowd ranges from nobles to fishmongers, each given space to speak. One elder steps forward, and complains about a local judge's crooked decisions. Musa listens, then assigns a scholar to quietly investigate. Justice, he says later, must never rest on gold or gossip. But there is a challenge beneath the optimism. Managing so much change is hard. You hear whispers in the markets. He is building too fast, these scholars. Will they understand our ways? Is this still Mali? Transitions bring friction. Some elders feel alienated by the wave of Arabic literacy overtaking oral tradition. Others fear that foreign influence might dilute local culture. Musa, however, walks the line with care. He commissions griots to record the new history orally, side by side with the written accounts. He ensures laws are taught in both Arabic and local languages. He funds musicians and storytellers, not just mathematicians. This is not a cultural overwrite. It is a cultural duet. And you, exhausted but inspired, begin to grasp what is happening here. Musa is not just ruling a kingdom. He is planting a legacy. One night, under the soft hum of cicadas and the rustle of baobab leaves, you join him on the palace terrace. The stars are back, brighter than ever. He points to one, then another. Knowledge, he says, is like those stars. It looks small until you reach it. Then you find it is massive and full of fire. You blink. The camel behind you sneezes. The moment passes, but it stays with you. You wake to the sound of scribes arguing over the correct spelling of sovereignty in Arabic. It is a good sign. Timbuktu is no longer a sleepy outpost. It hums with purpose. Buildings rise, scrolls multiply, and the air smells faintly of ink and ambition. Mansa Musa's vision is in motion, and you, somehow, are still walking its hallways. But let us zoom out for a moment. Mali is not just Timbuktu and Niani. It is a vast empire stretching from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to the bend of the Niger River. That means Musa's reforms must go wide, not just deep. And that is where it gets tricky, because gold does not distribute itself, nor does power. You ride with Musa's inspectors as they crisscross the empire, checking in on tax collectors, governors, and trade routes. The idea is simple. Keep everyone honest and make sure policies from the capital do not vanish into the heat haze. It is the birth of a more centralized administration, but not everyone loves being checked in on. In the city of Gao, yes, that Gao, future capital of the Songhai Empire, you hear rumblings. The local nobles smile too widely. Their hospitality is excessive. Gifts, feasts, flattery. It is not generosity. It is a shield. One whisper reaches your ear. Mali grows fat. One day, someone will take a bite. You tell Musa later. He nods, then says nothing for a long time. Historians still argue whether he took those threats seriously or simply believed the strength of ideas would outlast the envy of rivals. He did, however, begin reinforcing military outposts and improving communication routes soon after. So draw your own conclusions. Meanwhile, the economy is morphing. Musa does not just hoard gold, he moves it. Trade caravans become more frequent, more guarded, and more organized. Timbuktu becomes a tax checkpoint. Salt from Tagaza, gold from bambuk, kola nuts from the forests of the south, all pass through layers of regulation. It is not oppressive, it is efficient, and also occasionally annoying. You try getting a camel through customs with 3 unregistered jars of tamarind jam. You learn the word for confiscated very quickly. A quirky fact from this era: Musa experimented with state-stamped gold coins, though they never fully replaced the traditional use of gold dust and nuggets. Traders still preferred weighing it themselves. Trust, after all, is hard to mint. He also funded agricultural development. Rice cultivation is boosted. Irrigation projects snake out from the Niger-like veins. Musa's vision includes not just cities, but fertile fields. He's building an empire that eats well, thinks deeply, and trades smart. But do not mistake him for soft. You sit in on a royal court session where a noble is accused of skimming gold from caravans. He expects a slap on the wrist. Instead, Musa strips him of his titles and exiles him to a town known for its mosquitoes and existential regret. The message is clear. You can be rich, you can be powerful, but you must be righteous. And here is the twist. Even as he builds universities, expands trade, and lectures governors on ethics, Musa becomes more private. He retreats from public ceremonies, delegates more, prays more. You begin to notice a stillness in him, not withdrawal, something more like focus. He is thinking long term. One evening, you find him pacing in a courtyard lined with flame-lit lamps. The stars above are blurred by smoke, but his gaze is elsewhere anyway. He murmurs something. What will they remember? You start to answer, but he waves it off. Not your question to solve. Musa commissions new laws, some religious, some economic, some social. He wants them preserved in writing, passed through schools, recited in court, and he makes sure they are not just Arabic imports. They blend with manned customs, griot traditions, and local wisdom. It is not law by conquest. It is law by conversation. Scholars still debate whether this was deliberate cultural diplomacy or just a happy byproduct of his leadership style. But it works. Communities from the southern forests to the northern sands begin to feel more included. They see their customs respected, even if not always followed exactly. They see a Mali that listens, that is rare in history, and it makes you proud, even if your feet hurt from walking through yet another library inspection. Musa insists every scroll be cataloged. Knowledge is wealth that thieves cannot steal, he tells the head scribe. You roll your eyes. The head scribe carves it into the doorframe. He is serious. Still, not everything is golden. A drought begins to creep in from the east. The Niger shrinks just slightly. Crops struggle in some regions. Musa deploys emergency grain stores, sends aid caravans, and orders a tax holiday in the worst hit zones. But the tension simmers. One town accuses another of hoarding. A border skirmish breaks out near Takrir. Musa manages it with diplomacy and pressure, but you can feel it, that delicate balance between prosperity and unrest. Empires are like camels, strong, majestic, and surprisingly prone to collapse if you overload them. Yet even with these cracks, Mali under Musa stands strong. His reforms continue. His scholars publish treatises. His cities shine. And Timbuktu begins to glow. You hear travelers speak of it with reverence, almost disbelief. A place where even beggars can quote the Quran. One says, where the schools are louder than the markets. Musa's dream is working. But you also know dreams can drift. So you watch and you listen. Because even in this golden age, night falls. And somewhere, a rival watches too. The winds shift as you traverse the savannah once more. The horizon marked by low hills and acacia trees swaying in the late afternoon breeze. You cannot help but notice the subtle changes in the air, the kind that whisper of challenges ahead. Mansa Musa, despite his successes, senses it too. The empire's light, bright as it shines, casts long shadows. One of those shadows is political tension within the royal court. The line of succession, always a delicate matter, begins to occupy more conversations. Musa's sons are many, each with their own ambitions and supporters. You overhear hushed talks of alliances, whispered promises, and veiled threats. The balance Musa has maintained feels increasingly precarious. Historians still argue whether Musa prepared his heirs well or left a powder keg waiting to explode. Some claim his focus on religious and educational reform distracted him from politics. Others insist he was a master strategist who intentionally kept his children guessing. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between. Meanwhile, you ride alongside Musa as he inspects border fortresses. The Songhai to the east, once distant and disconnected, now loom like a slow-moving storm on the edge of Mali's territory. Reports speak of restless nobles and shifting loyalties. Musa's advisors debate whether to strike preemptively or continue diplomatic overtures. A quirky note from this tense period: Musa reportedly took up falconry to calm his nerves. He carried a white gerfalcon that he named Desert Whisper. The bird became a symbol of patience and precision, qualities Musa needed in abundance. As the empire's western borders expand, so too does trade. The Atlantic ports begin to bustle with activity. Salt, gold, and cola nuts move along new routes. Musa encourages merchants to adopt standardized weights and measures, which makes trading smoother, but occasionally infuriates traditional traders who prefer the old ways. In the marketplaces, you witness vibrant scenes. Camel caravans arriving with loads of fragrant spices, women bargaining loudly over colorful textiles, children darting between stalls chasing chickens. You even catch the scent of freshly baked millet bread mixed with the sharp tang of tamarind juice. But beneath this vibrancy, you feel the tension. The drought has worsened, and famine threatens parts of the empire. Musa responds with grace and determination, ordering emergency rations and encouraging local leaders to set aside differences. Yet you sense that the cracks in unity are deepening. One evening, during a quiet moment by the fire, Musa confides in you. An empire is not just built on gold or stone, but on trust. And trust is the most fragile of all. You nod, understanding the weight of his words. It reminds you of the camels, stubborn, resilient, but only if cared for well. Historians still debate whether these years marked the beginning of Mali's slow decline or simply a natural cycle of rise and fall. Some argue Musa's reforms set the foundation for centuries of cultural and economic prosperity. Others say his vast empire was simply too large to hold together indefinitely. You lean back, watching the fire's glow dance on Musa's thoughtful face. In his eyes, you see the heavy burden of a ruler who knows that history is watching. And somewhere, in the quiet desert night, desert whisper, the falcon lets out a soft call, a reminder that even kings must wait patiently for their moment to soar. The desert dawn greets you with a cool breeze, carrying the scent of acacia blossoms and warm sand. The sun peaks over the horizon, casting long shadows that stretch like memories across the golden earth. You find yourself walking beside Mansa Musa again, his silhouette framed against the fiery sky, a king shaped by faith, fortune, and the fierce rhythm of history. By now, the Mali Empire has blossomed into a dazzling constellation of cities, trade routes, and intellectual hubs. Yet beneath this brilliance, the practicalities of ruling such an expanse weigh heavily. Musa, ever the pragmatist, focuses on strengthening the administrative core. His court grows increasingly sophisticated, staffed by scholars, merchants, and diplomats who navigate the complexities of empire with meticulous care. One day, you accompany Musa to a gathering of emissaries from distant lands, merchants from Venice, envoys from Morocco, and travelers from the mysterious lands of Songhai. The air buzzes with languages blending into a lively mosaic of accents and dialects. You realize that the Mali Empire under Musa is not just a West African powerhouse. It is a player on the global stage. But even as this international dance unfolds, Musa remains grounded. He insists that the empire's wealth should serve its people first. You watch as he opens his treasury to fund schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. He invests heavily in building wells and irrigation systems, knowing that water is more precious than gold in the Sahel. Historians still debate how much of Musa's generosity was driven by personal piety versus political strategy. Some suggest his lavish spending was a calculated move to elevate Mali's prestige. Others believe it stemmed from genuine devotion and a desire to fulfill his duties as a Muslim ruler. Here's a quirky tidbit. During one festival, Musa reportedly hosted a feast where every dish was made with millet, the staple grain, prepared in dozens of imaginative ways, from sweet porridge to spiced flatbreads. The event was said to last for 3 days, with musicians and dancers celebrating the bounty of the land. Meanwhile, the empire's intellectual life thrives. Timbuktu's universities attract students from across Africa and the Middle East. Manuscripts on astronomy, medicine, and poetry circulate widely, creating a rich tapestry of knowledge that defies the simplistic stereotypes of the medieval world. You find yourself lingering in the libraries, watching scribes copy texts by candlelight, their hands moving with reverence and care. Musa often visits these halls, quietly listening to debates and occasionally joining in with a question that reveals his sharp mind. However, not all is serene. You hear whispers of dissent among the warrior class, some chafing under the growing influence of scholars and bureaucrats. The balance between military might and intellectual power is delicate, and Musa must carefully manage both. One evening, during a rare moment of solitude, Musa confides in you his fear that the empire's greatness might be fleeting. Empires are like sandcastles, he muses, beautiful and intricate, but vulnerable to the tides. You remind him of the camels, slow, steady, enduring. He smiles faintly, appreciating the analogy. As you watch the sun set beyond the Niger, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, you understand that Mansa Musa's legacy is more than gold or power. It is a testament to vision, faith, and the enduring strength of a culture determined to shine. The sun sets slowly, bathing the land in a warm amber glow that softens the edges of Mali's vast landscape. You stand on the banks of the Niger River, watching as its waters carry stories downstream, stories of merchants, scholars, and warriors alike. You feel the pulse of the empire beneath your feet, steady but aware of the subtle tremors ahead. Mansa Musa's reign has brought unprecedented wealth and prestige, but the machinery of such a vast empire is never without its creaks and groans. As you walk through bustling marketplaces and tranquil mosques, you notice a new tension emerging, a test of whether Mali's greatness can withstand the pressures of time and change. One such pressure is the rise of neighboring powers, particularly the Songhai kingdom to the east. Once a tributary, Songhai grows bolder, its leaders eyeing independence and perhaps even dominance. Musa's diplomats work tirelessly to maintain alliances, but the seeds of rivalry are planted. Historians still debate whether Musa's successors underestimated Songhai's ambitions, or whether internal strife weakened Mali's grasp. Some argue the empire's sheer size made it unwieldy, while others point to shifting trade routes and environmental challenges. Meanwhile, back in Timbuktu, the cultural and intellectual flame burns bright but flickers with new challenges. As the city's universities swell with students, competition among scholars intensifies. Debates become livelier, sometimes spilling into the streets, adding a touch of chaos to the serene study halls. A quirky detail you overhear: some students formed a secret club called the Night Owls, gathering after midnight to discuss controversial ideas under the stars, fueled by spiced tea and endless curiosity. Musa's administration recognizes the need to balance tradition and innovation. He encourages dialogue between the old and the new, sponsoring festivals where griots and scholars share stories and poems. This fusion of oral and written traditions becomes a hallmark of Mali's cultural resilience. On the economic front, Mali continues to thrive, but new challenges arise. The demand for gold remains high, but resources are not infinite. You observe miners pushing deeper into the earth, using primitive tools and sheer determination. Some warn of overexploitation, while others see it as necessary for maintaining Mali's influence. The empire's infrastructure also faces strain. Roads need repairs, caravans require protection from bandits, and communication lines must be strengthened. Musa initiates projects to improve these systems, often writing out himself to oversee progress. One evening, as the sky darkens, Musa invites you to join a council meeting with his closest advisors. The discussion turns to succession planning, a delicate topic that requires wisdom and subtlety. Musa stresses the importance of unity and the dangers of factionalism. You sense his weariness, but also his unwavering commitment. An empire is more than borders and wealth, he says softly. It is the people who live within them, their hopes and fears, their stories and dreams. The conversation lingers in your mind as you lie beneath a canopy of stars, the desert night whispering ancient secrets. You realize that Molly's story is far from over, its chapters still unfolding in the hands of those who dare to dream and build. Dawn creeps in softly, filtering through the palm fronds as you find yourself wandering the outskirts of Niani, Mali's capital. The city hums with a quiet energy, the sound of merchants setting up stalls, blacksmiths hammering iron, and camels murmuring in the heat. The empire pulses with life, but beneath that rhythm, something else stirs. Mansa Musa's health is no longer as robust as it once was. You notice the subtle stiffness in his walk, the moments when his eyes glaze slightly, as if recalling distant memories or pondering heavy thoughts. Age and the weight of empire press upon him, yet his spirit remains undiminished. Historians still debate the exact cause of Musa's decline. Some say it was illness brought on by his arduous pilgrimage and long travels. Others believe it was the stress of ruling a vast, diverse empire. Either way, his final years are marked by a subtle shift in leadership style. Musa begins delegating more to trusted officials and his sons, but that opens the door to court intrigues and power struggles. You overhear whispers of rival factions forming, each jockeying for influence and favor. The delicate balance that Musa maintained now seems more fragile than ever. A quirky little fact from this period: Musa reportedly developed a fondness for chess in his later years, using the game to teach his heirs about strategy and patience. Imagine a king juggling actual kingdoms while moving tiny wooden figures on a board. Meanwhile, the empire's cultural life continues to flourish. Timbuktu's universities produce manuscripts that explore everything from mathematics to medicine, often blending Islamic scholarship with indigenous knowledge. The city is a beacon of learning, drawing students from distant lands. Yet, not all is harmonious. You witness occasional protests by farmers frustrated with taxation or traders upset by new regulations. Musa listens carefully, sometimes making concessions, sometimes standing firm. His belief in justice guides these decisions, but you sense the strain. Environmental challenges also worsen. The Sahel's rainy seasons become less predictable. Some regions suffer from drought, others from flooding. Musa commissions new irrigation projects, but nature's mood is not easily tamed. You recall an unusual story told by a local griot. During a particularly harsh dry spell, a camel caravan carrying gold was reportedly saved by a sudden sandstorm that forced bandits to flee. Some called it divine intervention, others just fortunate timing. As Musa's health wanes, his focus sharpens on securing his legacy. He revisits old projects, encourages final expansions of libraries and schools, and offers prayers for Mali's future. His faith remains a cornerstone of his rule, both a source of comfort and strength. One evening, sitting beneath a sprawling baobab tree, Musa shares a rare smile and tells you, an empire is not built in a day, nor is it lost in one. It is the story of many lifetimes. You nod, feeling the truth in those words resonate beyond the dusty roads and golden halls. History will remember Mansa Musa not just for his wealth, but for his vision, his wisdom, and his humanity. And as the sun sets, painting the sky in soft pinks and purples, you prepare for the chapters yet to come, chapters that will tell of endings, beginnings, and the timeless dance of legacy. The morning light is gentle, filtered through the delicate leaves of mango trees that line the streets of Niani. The city feels different now, quieter, almost contemplative. News has begun to ripple through the empire. Mansa Musa's health is failing more rapidly. The great king, who once strode through marketplaces like a living sunbeam, now walks with a measured step, his presence more a whisper than a roar. You follow Musa as he moves through his palace, his mind still sharp despite the frailty. The court watches with a mixture of reverence and anxiety, knowing the inevitable is approaching. The question on everyone's lips is not just who will succeed him, but whether Mali can hold together without its towering figure. The question of succession has long been a source of debate among historians. Some argue Musa's careful grooming of heirs ensured continuity. Others suggest the lack of a clear, strong successor sowed seeds of fragmentation. You can see both sides as you witness the subtle jockeying for power among Musa's sons and trusted advisors. A quirky but revealing detail. Musa's favorite son reportedly carried a small pouch of gold dust wherever he went, not as a sign of arrogance, but as a talisman for good fortune, a reminder that even royal heirs are not immune to superstition. Musa, however, remains focused on Mali's future beyond family politics. He calls together his council one last time to discuss the empire's long-term stability. He urges investment in education, infrastructure, and diplomacy. His vision is clear. Mali must not rely solely on gold or conquest, but on knowledge and unity. You accompany Musa to the mosque, where he leads prayers with calm dignity. His voice, though softer now, carries the weight of a lifetime of devotion. The community gathers, sensing this is a moment of transition, a passing of the torch. Historians still argue whether Musa's emphasis on Islamic scholarship helped unify the empire or inadvertently marginalized certain indigenous traditions. The truth is complex, woven through centuries of culture and belief. Outside the palace, the streets pulse with life as always. Merchants haggle over spices, children chase after goats, and storytellers weave tales that blend history with myth. You listen to one griot recount the legend of a mysterious white camel that guided Musa's pilgrimage, a tale that captures the imagination and blurs the lines between fact and folklore. As the sun sets behind distant dunes, you stand beside Musa, feeling the quiet weight of history pressing upon you both. The empire he built shines brilliantly, but the horizon is tinged with uncertainty. You remember the patient camels who endure the desert's harshness with steady persistence. You wonder if Mali's future will mirror that same resilience. And as night falls, the stars above seem to whisper that every end is but a beginning, every empire a chapter in an ever-unfolding story. The soft glow of dawn seeps into your room as you find yourself walking the corridors of the royal palace. Now quieter, the air thick with anticipation and unspoken worries. Mansa Musa's final days are near, and you sense the empire holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable. The king's health has declined significantly, and his once commanding presence is now a fragile whisper. You watch as his family gathers, sons and daughters, courtiers and advisors, each grappling with the weight of impending change. Loyalties are tested in subtle ways, smiles that don't reach eyes, conversations that trail off when Musa enters. Historians still debate how much these final days shape the empire's fate. Was Musa's death the breaking point that unleashed rivalries? Or were these tensions already present, merely awaiting a catalyst? A curious detail surfaces. It is said that Musa requested a final gift to the empire, a collection of ancient manuscripts from Timbuktu's libraries to be copied and distributed, ensuring that knowledge would outlive even kings. This act, blending humility and foresight, encapsulates much of his reign. Despite his weakness, Musa remains mentally alert, offering counsel to his sons and reminding them that leadership is a heavy but sacred responsibility. His voice, though faint, carries the gravity of decades spent forging one of the most prosperous empires the world has known. You witness a poignant moment where Musa speaks quietly to his eldest son, urging him to seek unity above personal ambition. Gold can build walls, he says, but only trust can build a lasting kingdom. The atmosphere is thick with emotion as family members prepare for the inevitable farewell. Prayers fill the palace, mingling with the sounds of drums and ululations from the city beyond, a reminder that life continues even as one chapter closes. Outside, the empire's heartbeat goes on. Merchants travel the same dusty routes. Scholars debate beneath ancient trees, and camels trudge steadily across the golden sands. The natural world seems unchanged, indifferent to human triumphs and tragedies. Yet, you know that this moment will echo through history. Musa's death will mark a turning point, not just for Mali, but for West Africa as a whole. The empire will face new challenges, but the foundations laid by this remarkable king will endure. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows, you feel a quiet reverence. The story of Mansa Musa is far from over, but for now, the stage is set for the next act, and you, watching from the sidelines of history, feel privileged to have witnessed the final days of a legend. Night settles softly over the empire, wrapping the city of Niani in a gentle hush. The palace feels both heavy with loss and charged with a new energy, as if the very walls are holding their breath for what comes next. Mansa Musa has passed on, and with his departure, a new era dawns, a fragile, uncertain time that will test Mali's resilience. You find yourself walking among the people, farmers in their fields, traders in the markets, and scholars in the libraries, each experiencing the transition in their own way. For many, Musa's reign was a golden age, a time when wealth and knowledge flowed like the Niger River itself. But now, uncertainty whispers on the wind. The question on everyone's mind is, can Musa's successors maintain the grandeur and unity of the empire? His son Maga steps forward as the new Mansa, inheriting a throne heavy with expectations and challenges. Historians still argue over Maga's effectiveness as ruler. Some see him as a capable leader who struggled against overwhelming odds, while others believe his reign marked the beginning of Mali's gradual decline. A quirky fact to lighten the mood: according to some oral traditions, Maga was less interested in gold and more fascinated by music, reportedly introducing new instruments and styles to the royal court, which sparked both delight and confusion among traditionalists. Maga inherits not only vast wealth, but also a complex political landscape. The empire's size makes it difficult to govern from a single capital, and regional governors begin asserting more independence. Trade routes face increasing threats from bandits and rival kingdoms, and climate shifts cause unpredictable harvests. You accompany Maga on a tour of the empire, noting his efforts to stabilize the regions. He holds court in cities like Gao and Timbuktu, trying to project strength and maintain loyalty. Yet, beneath the surface, cracks are forming. Meanwhile, the cultural life that Musa nurtured continues. Timbuktu remains a beacon of learning, but the once unified scholarly community starts showing signs of factionalism. Some factions advocate for stricter religious orthodoxy, while others push for more eclectic intellectual freedom. A delicate balance that Musa maintained now requires delicate hands, and sometimes those hands tremble. As you watch the sun dip below the horizon, you realize that the empire's future depends on more than gold and power. It depends on adaptation, wisdom, and the willingness to evolve with the shifting sands of time. And you, walking alongside history once more, feel the bittersweet truth that even the greatest empires face moments of uncertainty and change. The breeze carries a faint hint of dust as you traverse the dusty paths between Mali's great cities. The empire, once a beacon of unstoppable power under Mansa Musa, now feels like a vast ship steering through choppy waters, where every decision matters and every alliance can shift the course. Maga's reign, while earnest, is shadowed by growing challenges. The decentralized nature of Mali's rule makes it difficult to respond swiftly to threats, whether from rebellious governors, emerging neighbors like Songhai, or the shifting currents of trans-Saharan trade. Historians still debate whether the empire's decline was inevitable or could have been slowed with different leadership choices. The sheer scale of Mali's territory posed logistical nightmares. Controlling distant provinces relied heavily on trust and communication, two things that are hard to maintain over thousands of miles of desert and savanna. An amusing anecdote from this time tells of a royal courier who supposedly got lost for days after following a caravan of camels mistaken for an official procession. Talk about putting the slow in slow mail. The Songhai kingdom is growing increasingly assertive, no longer content to be a vassal, but eyeing Mali's riches with ambition. Their leaders consolidate power, and fortify their cities, preparing to challenge Mali's supremacy. Trade routes begin to shift subtly but significantly. While gold remains valuable, salt and other commodities gain importance, diversifying the economic landscape. Caravans become more heavily armed, and the ever-present threat of bandits adds tension to the vast desert highways. You notice that despite political upheavals, cultural life persists. Timbuktu's manuscripts are copied and traded, music evolves, and oral traditions adapt to new realities. Mali's people, like the resilient camels that traverse the Sahara, endure through endurance and adaptability. One intriguing detail: some scholars argue that Mali's intellectual legacy influenced far beyond West Africa, possibly impacting Mediterranean and Middle Eastern scholarship, a reminder that knowledge, unlike gold, knows no borders. Maga's leadership is a mixture of hope and struggle. He attempts reforms, strengthens diplomacy, and promotes Islamic scholarship, but the empire's centrifugal forces grow harder to contain. You watch as history unfolds, a complex dance of ambition, survival, and change. And as the sun sets over the sands, you realize that even in decline, Mali's story holds lessons in resilience and transformation. The sun rises slowly over the Sahara, casting long shadows that stretch like memories across the land. You find yourself moving through the bustling markets of Timbuktu, where the scent of spices mingles with the dusty air, and the chatter of traders echoes through narrow alleys. Despite the political upheaval, life pulses on with an almost stubborn energy. Mali's empire, vast and storied, faces growing pressure from internal factions and external rivals. Songhai's ambitions are no longer whispered threats, but open challenges. The once unquestioned dominance of Mali in West Africa begins to waver, raising questions about the fate of this golden kingdom. Historians debate whether Mali's decline was hastened by economic shifts or political fragmentation. Some suggest that climate changes in the Sahel region disrupted agriculture and trade, while others highlight leadership disputes and military pressures. An interesting tidbit you overhear: a popular folktale claims that a legendary griot composed a lament for Mali's fading glory, performed annually under the baobab trees, a mournful yet hopeful reminder that even empires have their twilight. You see evidence of Mali's cultural resilience everywhere. Manuscripts on astronomy, law, and poetry continue to be produced. Scholars and poets gather in cafes, debating everything from theology to ethics, proving that knowledge is an enduring legacy beyond politics. Meanwhile, the gold mines that once glittered under Musa's reign show signs of depletion. Miners push deeper, their tools clanking in the tunnels, but the richness is not what it once was. This decline in gold output affects trade, and by extension, Mali's influence. The shifting trade routes favor emerging powers, and merchants adapt by diversifying goods and finding new markets. Salt, ivory, and textiles gain prominence, reflecting Mali's economic evolution. You observe the people's spirit, resilient, adaptable, sometimes defiant. Markets bustle, children play, and life's rhythms continue despite the empire's challenges. In the palace, Maga's successors face daunting tasks, maintaining unity, defending borders, and fostering prosperity. The era of Mansa Musa's radiant leadership has passed, but Mali's story is far from finished. As night falls, you feel the desert's calm envelop you. Mali's sands carry the echoes of past glories and future possibilities, a reminder that history flows like the Niger, sometimes turbulent, sometimes serene, but always onward. The cool desert air wraps around you like a soft blanket as you wander the streets of Gao, a city once under Mali's shadow, but now rising in its own right. The Songhai Empire's ascent signals a new chapter in West African history, one written with the lessons learned from Mali's brilliance and its struggles. You witness the shifting balance of power firsthand. Mali's influence shrinks, but its cultural and intellectual imprint remains indelible. Timbuktu, once the heart of Mali's scholarly world, now becomes a contested jewel, drawing both rivalry and cooperation from neighboring powers. Historians still debate the precise timing and causes of Mali's decline and Songhai's rise. Was it a peaceful transition or marked by violent clashes? The evidence is often contradictory, but the narrative you observe is one of complex interweaving alliances and conflicts. A quirky note: local storytellers claim that some Songhai rulers commissioned secretive camel spies, camels trained to carry messages undetected through desert routes, blending in with merchant caravans. Whether true or folklore, it captures the cleverness of desert diplomacy. Trade continues to be the empire's lifeblood, with caravans loaded with gold, salt, and manuscripts crisscrossing the Sahara. Despite political turmoil, commerce fosters connections that outlast borders and dynasties. Culturally, Mali's legacy thrives in music, poetry, and oral traditions. You hear the deep rhythms of the kora and the haunting melodies of the balafon, echoing stories of kings and commoners alike. The architectural marvels built during Musa's reign remain silent witnesses to a time of unprecedented wealth and vision. The Sankore University's domes and minarets still rise proudly, symbols of knowledge's enduring power. You reflect on the empire's journey, from humble beginnings to golden heights, through trials and transitions. Mali's story is a testament to human ambition, creativity, and resilience. As stars twinkle overhead in the vast desert sky, you feel a profound connection to the past, a reminder that every empire leaves its mark, not just in gold or power, but in the stories that continue to inspire. And you, as a traveler of history's winding paths, carry these stories forward, gently cradling the echoes of Mansa Musa's world. The night deepens, and the soft rustle of desert winds carries the faint echoes of ancient songs. You sit beneath the sprawling limbs of an acacia tree, the stars twinkling above like distant campfires in the vast darkness. Here, at the edge of time and memory, Mali's story gently unfolds before you, like a slowly unfurling scroll. After Mansa Musa's reign, the empire transformed, fractured, and reformed, but its spirit persisted. The legacy of gold and pilgrimage, of scholarship and diplomacy, has left an indelible mark on history. Mali was never just about wealth. It was about the vision of a people striving to build a world where knowledge, faith, and culture flourished in the harshest of environments. You recall the patient camels, those steadfast desert companions who bore the burdens of empire with quiet endurance. Like them, Mali carried its people across vast distances and through turbulent times, adapting and surviving against all odds. Historians continue to debate many aspects of Mali's history, from the exact impact of climate shifts to the nuances of political power struggles. These debates remind you that history is never fixed, but a living conversation between the past and present. One last quirky fact. Some griots claim that the spirit of Mansa Musa still rides the desert winds, guiding lost travelers and whispering wisdom to those who listen carefully. Whether myth or magic, it captures the lasting enchantment of this remarkable era. As you lean back, the soft hum of the night and the gentle cadence of your breathing slow your thoughts. Mali's story, full of light and shadow, riches and resilience, ends not with a bang, but a whisper, a quiet invitation to dream. So now you close your eyes, letting the vastness of the desert night carry you into sleep. The journey through history has been long, winding, and rich, and as the stars watch over you, you know that these stories will always wait patiently for you to return. The world turns softly as your mind drifts, carrying the warmth of sunlit sands, the distant call of the muezzin, and the gentle strength of those patient camels. You are wrapped in the quiet comfort of knowledge shared and stories remembered. Rest now, with the desert's breath steady and slow.